Joining me right now, I've known him for a long time, Roger Stone, friend of mine. And Roger Stone worked with the Trump campaign, but is now sort of like on the periphery, although I think he's been consulting or advising. He supports Trump. Welcome to the show, Roger. Always good to have you.
Dana, great to be here.
So, all right, Indiana, big day, Indiana. What do you think? How do you think tonight is going to pan out for the Trump campaign? Because everybody's watching to see what the state decides, because it could determine the primary tonight.
Yeah, I think it's very pivotal. You're absolutely right about primary polling always being notoriously volatile and sometimes inaccurate. That said, there's enough public polling that I have studied the methodology on that I tend to believe, and therefore I think Trump will win tonight, and he will win again, having spent lesser resources in Indiana than his opponent, but I do think it means the handwriting is on the wall, and it remains to be seen what Senator Cruz decides to do from here.
Well, and of course, after this, there are the other states out west. You have like Montana, you have Wyoming, some of these other states where it was believed that Trump wouldn't do too well in. But, however, that momentum could change if Ted Cruz doesn't perform well in Indiana tonight. And I know that over the weekend, he was Trump was sort of dividing his time between Indiana and California. Was there any concern at all about a lot of people were saying that he got a late start on California, not getting a political director there until, a few weeks ago. Do you think that's going to affect, getting a voter outreach or anything like that in California? Because a lot of people are watching certain congressional districts there.
In all honesty, I don't think that this is an organizational exercise. I actually think California is a state that's too large to organize. It is largely a media based exercise, and Trump has proved a master in terms of dominating media coverage. Also, if there's any state in the country that is more celebrity conscious or celebrity sensitive, of course it would be California. So it has a very healthy conservative movement in the state. Trump has been late, but I think it's fair to say in every state his campaign has invested less in infrastructure and organization and put more of a premium on free media coverage, a strategy which I frankly was very skeptical about, which has proved to be, very, very effective for him.
Do you think that media buys and all of that, would that even have an impact as far as his campaign is concerned at this point? Because you mentioned that earned media, and I know that was something you and I have talked about before. And it's weird because I don't recall any, maybe there is one. I don't recall a campaign before that really didn't do media buys and didn't even really do so much as a viral video.
Yeah, never before. I mean, generally speaking, I have always been a believer in the efficiency and effectiveness of paid media. Yet we have seen in state after state where, let's take Florida, where $40 million combined was spent against Trump between the anti-Trump PACs and between the Cruz campaign and the pro-Cruz super PACs, and the Rubio campaign and the pro-Rubio super PACs and so on. And it seems to have had no effect at all. Donald Trump did not pay for a single television commercial or radio commercial in Florida, and he won going away. So he's a force of nature, and he commands free media coverage, I think, largely because he's so unpredictable. He's so unprogrammed. You never know what he might say, and voters therefore find this, entertaining and to a certain extent refreshing, which is what generates the ratings, which generates the coverage.
At the same time, though, some might say it might make it a little harder for party unity. I know that he talked about this yesterday when he was on the campaign trail, saying that we need to have a united Republican Party. He was on Fox last night, I think it was with Hannity, saying, well, yeah, we have to have a united Republican Party. It does make it harder, though, because at this point, and tonight it may be down to just not even a race anymore. It may be down to where we have a primary, we have the nominee this evening, or at least until they get to 12:37, there's really not going to be competition. But there are some who say, look, it's still a two-man race, and it's hard to achieve that party unity when, like earlier today during a Fox and Friends interview, Trump was talking about Ted Cruz's dad and saying, well, he was associated with Lee Harvey Oswald and all of this stuff. And a lot of people were scratching their heads and saying, well, how can you say party unity and kind of make that appeal one day and then turn around and say something like this the next day? It does make it difficult.
Yes, the good news I can sum up in 2 words. Hillary Clinton. I think she will be the greatest argument for party unity that there is. Whatever our differences may be, they're nothing compared to the differences between us and Hillary. Hillary is going to mow poor Bernie Sanders down. He's run a spirited campaign, but in my opinion, he has not questioned her on the issues in which she is most vulnerable, probably because they're so politically incorrect within the microcosm of the Democratic Party. But the idea of a Hillary Clinton presidency, I think, is very chilling, and therefore any right-thinking American has got to think long and hard about bolting the party or sitting out the election.
There are some, though, who say, well, it's because I saw the latest poll. What was it, the Rasmussen poll? And it was one of the first polls in a long time that showed him, I think it was like he was 2 points ahead of Hillary Clinton in a general head-to-head matchup. Now, that's still, I don't know what the margin of error on that was. That's still pretty tight. I mean, Churchill took all allies. If he ends up becoming the nominee, he's going to need all allies. Does he have anybody in his campaign saying, you know what, you may want to walk back some of this, because a lot of people feel as though he's attacking some of these, true blue conservatives out there?
Yeah, I think that they are growingly sensitive to it. I frankly think they are counting on the fact that Hillary Clinton is going to be the opposition to help galvanize the party, which I think ultimately it will do. It may take some time to repair the party, but this is a struggle over whether we're going to have a change or whether we're going to have the third term of Barack Obama, or maybe even worse. So I do think, and having known him for 40 years, there's no such thing as permanent enemies for Donald Trump. He understands that a lot of this is political rhetoric. Witness the favorable things he said about Marco Rubio recently. I think that these fissures in the party can be repaired.
Well, and that's ultimately, that's what it would take in order to bypass somebody like Hillary Clinton. What do you make of the people? George Will had a column just 2 days ago where he was saying, you know what, if Trump ends up being the nominee, he said, I want Hillary Clinton to win. What do you make of George Will, and what's your take on his piece?
Well, he's an elitist. He's an inside-the-beltway elitist, and sadly there are those in the Republican Party or those in the movement, many of whom, by the way, wear the second hat of lobbyist. And I think what scares some of these people about Trump is that he is completely uncontrollable, that he is not reliant on special interest campaign contributions. He's not reliant on the lobbyist class or the donor class, and therefore he marches entirely to his own drummer, and he would be, responsible only to the American people. So there are some Republicans who, for their own personal economic reasons, would be more comfortable with Hillary Clinton, because she is, after all, not really a progressive or a liberal. She's a crony capitalist. She's about the money. She and her husband are intrinsically corrupt, and therefore they're transactional. You can deal with the Clintons. Maybe you can't buy them, but you can rent them. You could never say that about Donald Trump.
Well, going into a general head-to-head matchup, like we just said, it would be incredibly tight, and you need every single weapon at your disposal. Do you think that the Clintons have yet, or even the media, do you think that they've really, because to me, when I look at this and when I look at the way that the media has been playing out with the GOP candidates, I don't really think that they've unloaded on anyone yet. What is your take on that? I mean, looking forward to a general, because, it's the media, and the media needs to replace its cult of personality, Barack Obama. These people have built up, NBC and CBS and all of these people, they've built up their business around Barack Obama. They got to change it out with somebody like Hillary Clinton. Not only are their ideals on the line, but really, you could argue that their business models are on the line as well. What is the campaign doing to prepare for something like that? Because the primary, as you know, Roger, because you've done this before, this primary stuff would be nothing in comparison to what the Clinton machine would throw.
Well, we can't count on the mainstream media to be an honest broker in the upcoming election. They're not going to play that role because, by and large, this isn't universally true, but it's mostly true. They are part of the problem. They are in bed with the political establishment, and very much in bed with the Clintons. So when somebody like Steve Malzberg or Kurt Schlichter or any conservative commentator goes on CNN and attempts to talk about Hillary's actual record of bullying and intimidating women who have been Bill Clinton's sexual assault victims, at CNN, they just unplug your microphone. They literally just cut you off. They don't want to go there. And that shows, in fact, that CNN's not really a media organization. It's really an advocacy group. I'm banned from CNN. I'm too politically incorrect. I find that laughable because they feature people who have said things far more egregious than I've ever said. The problem here is that I will tell the truth about Hillary Clinton and her husband and her foundation and her tenure as Secretary of State and Bill Clinton's serial rapes and Hillary's cover-up thereof, and that is incredibly politically incorrect.
Let me add last question for you, Roger, because I know you're on a tight schedule as well. If it comes down to, say, because we're not really exactly sure what's going to happen tonight, if it comes down to it, and Trump ends up really getting the plurality of delegates in Indiana tonight, and going forward, it looks less and less like a two-man race. And ultimately, as we roll into June 7th and after, it's, say he gets to 1237 before we go to Cleveland. In order to have party unity, do you ever see him, maybe for the JFK stuff that he said today and some of the others, do you ever see him trying to extend an olive branch to Cruz or to people who have been kind of on the fence about his candidacy in order to repair those bridges?
Well, it would be wise to reach out to everybody he ran against and try to bind up the party's rules, and he's more than capable of that. On the other hand, I don't know when this process will be over. There is a school of thought that the nomination, even if Trump gets to 1237, could be hijacked through some rules play or credentials play. The Republican establishment in a number of states has systematically filled the Trump delegate seats with non-Trump supporters, meaning people who may be bound, at least temporarily, to vote for Trump on the first ballot, but not bound to him on procedural questions of rules or credentials.
Well, there's
so
some,
we have to kind of let that play out.
But isn't that, though, because, his campaign, in some of these states, he didn't even go to Colorado when they were having their conventions. Some are saying, look, he had to keep at least some sort of skeleton of a campaign left in these states. He can't just pull up stakes and go. He needs to make sure that he fills that slate with people who are friendly to his campaign. He was able to do that in Pennsylvania. I don't know why he didn't duplicate what he did in Pennsylvania in some of these other states, because there were grassroots people that I know who were running to be delegates in Colorado. One of them was friendly towards the Trump campaign, and they were saying they hardly had anybody here handing anything out and telling people, and encouraging and really campaigning and advocating for these delegates.
Yeah, look, I think Colorado was badly mishandled by the Trump campaign under previous leadership. But there are other states where the campaign has had a substantial presence, but they were still outdone in the delegate selection process, and the delegate selection process bore no resemblance to the votes of the voters in that state. But I'm talking about something
participate.
More egregious and more direct, a rules change that would unseat Trump delegates, a credentials change that would attempt to unseat Trump delegates. We have a precedence for this in our party in 1952, and it could be attempted again. I think it's a very difficult thing to pull off.
And tonight on my show on The Blaze, we're going to be talking to one of those individuals that actually is taking part in the Rules Committee, and we're going to get the skinny on this, because I think, if you walk, 1237 is 1237. That's what we've been saying this entire time. Roger Stone, always good to talk with you. We're going to be watching tonight to see what happens.
Dana, thanks for having me. Great to be back with you.
Take care.